Okay, we're on paragraph 30 of the introduction of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Go ahead, Alan.
This incident shows clearly that the Lord was not a so-called timid Vandava. A Vandava is a fearless devotee of the Lord, and for the right cause, he can take any step suitable for the purpose.
Vaishnava.
Arjun,
Vaishnava.
Arjun, yeah. Vaishnava. Arjun was also a Vaishnava, devotee of Lord Krishna, and he fought valiantly for the satisfaction of the Lord. Similarly, what's that word?
Vajrangaji.
Hanuman was also a devotee of Lord Rama, and he gave lessons to the non-devotee party of Ravana. The principle of Vaishnavism are to satisfy the Lord by all means. A Vaishnava is by nature a non-violent, peaceful living being, and he has all the good qualities of God. But when the non-devotee blasphemies the Lord or his devotees, the Vaishnava never tolerates such impunity.
After this incident, the Lord began to preach and propagate his Bhagavat Dharma, or Sankirtan movement, more vigorously. And whoever stood against this propagation of the Yuga Dharma, or duty of the age, was properly punished by various types of chastisement. Two Brahmana gentlemen named Chapal and Gopal, who also happened to be maternal uncles of the Lord, were afflicted with leprosy by way of chastisement, and later, when they were repentant, they were accepted by the Lord. In the course of his preaching work, he used to send daily all his followers, including Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur, the two chief whips of his party, from door to door to preach the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. All of Navadvip was surcharged with his Sankirtan movement, and his headquarters were situated at the house of Srivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Prabhu, two of his chief householder disciples. These two learned heads of the Brahmana community were the most ardent supporters of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Sri Advaita Prabhu was the chief cause for the advent of the Lord. When Advaita Prabhu saw the total human society was full of materialistic activities and devoid of devotional service, which alone could save mankind from the threefold miseries of material existence, he, out of his causeless compassion for the age-worn human society, prayed fervently for the incarnation of the Lord and continually worshipped the Lord with water of the Ganges and leaves of the holy Tulsi tree. As far as preaching work in the Sankirtan movement was concerned, everyone was expected to do his daily share according to the order of the Lord.
Once, Nityananda Prabhu and Srila Haridas Thakur were walking down on a main road, and on the way they saw a roaring crowd assembled. Upon inquiring from passerby, they understood the two brothers named, is it Jagai?
Jagai and Madhai.
Jagai Mahai were creating a public disturbance into a drunken state. They also heard that these two brothers were born in a respectable Brahmana family, but because of low association, they had turned into debauchees of the worst type. They were not only drunkards, but also meat eaters, women hunters, what's that word?
Dacoits.
Dacoits, and sinners of all descriptions. Srila Nityananda Prabhu heard all of these stories and decided that these two fallen souls must be the first to be delivered. If they were delivered from their sinful life, then the good name of Lord Chaitanya would be even still more glorified. Thinking in this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas pushed their way through the crowd and asked the two brothers to chant the holy name of Lord Hari. The drunken brothers became enraged upon this request and attacked Nityananda Prabhu with filthy language. Both brothers chased them a considerable distance. In the evening, the report of the preaching work was submitted to the Lord, and he was glad to learn that Nityananda and Haridas had attempted to deliver such a stupid pair of fellows.
The next day, Nityananda Prabhu went to see the two brothers, and as soon as he approached them, one of them threw a piece of earthen pot at him. This struck him on the forehead, and immediately blood began to flow. But Nityananda Prabhu was so kind that instead of protesting this heinous act, he said, quote, "It does not matter that you have thrown this stone at me. I still request that you chant the holy name of Hari," end quote.
One of the brothers, Jagai, was astonished to see the misbehavior of Nityananda Prabhu, and he at once fell down at his feet and asked him to pardon his sinful brother. When Madhai again attempted to hurt Nityananda Prabhu, Jagai stopped him and implored him to fall down at his feet. In the meantime, the news of Nityananda's injury reached the Lord, who at once hurried to the spot in a fiery and angry mode. The Lord immediately invoked his Sudarsana's chakra, the Lord's ultimate weapon shaped like a wheel, to kill the sinners. But Nityananda Prabhu reminded him of his mission. The mission of the Lord was to deliver the hopelessly fallen souls of Kali Yuga, and the brothers Jagai and Madhai were typical examples of these fallen souls. 90% of the population of this age resembles these brothers, despite high birth and mundane respectability. According to the verdict of the revealed scriptures, the total population of the world in this age will be the lowest of Sudra quality, or even lower. It should be noted that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never acknowledged the stereotyped caste system by birthright. Rather, he strictly followed the verdict of the Shastras in the matter of one's Swarup, or real identity.
When the Lord was invoking his Sudarshan chakra and Srila Nityananda Prabhu was imploring him to forgive the two brothers, both the brothers fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and begged his pardon for their gross behavior. The Lord was also asked by Nityananda Prabhu to accept these repenting souls, and the Lord agreed to accept them on one condition, that they henceforward completely give up all their sinful activities and habits of debauchery. Both the brothers agreed and promised to give up all their sinful habits, and the kind Lord accepted them and did not again refer to their past misdeeds.
This is the specific kindness of Lord Chaitanya. In this age, no one can say that he is free from sin. It is impossible for anyone to say this, but Lord Chaitanya accepted all kinds of sinful people on the one condition that they promised not to indulge in sinful habits after being spiritually initiated by the bona fide spiritual.
Hello.
Hello. I see you changed your name.
Well, that was my work thing. I'm trying to get I got a little Surface Go of my own just because it's convenient. So I'm trying to get everything I need going on it.
Cool. Yeah, that's actually the password on this site, on this this Zoom call. Anyway, we're in the middle of this. Alan just suddenly. Alan.
Oh, I meant to put my name. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I just realized I don't know how to change it. I'll figure it out. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. We'll call you Saranam from now on.
I can't believe I did that.
So,
okay, whatever.
But so let's see. Why don't you read the one at the top of the page here? This is the specific kindness. At the top of the page, there's
okay. This Okay, I'm sorry. Let me move this out of the way. I'm sorry. It's the same as my other thing. I'm just getting used to it. Okay. This is the specific kindness of Lord Chaitanya. In this age, no one can say that he is free from sin, and it is impossible for anyone to say this. But Lord Chaitanya accepts all kinds of sinful persons on the one condition that they promise not to indulge in sinful habits after being spiritually initiated by the bona fide spiritual master.
There are a number of instructive points to be observed in this incident of the two brothers. In this Kali Yuga, practically all the people are of the quality of Jagai and Madhai. If they want to be relieved from the reactions of their misdeeds, they must take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and after spiritual initiation, thus refrain from those things which are prohibited in the Shastras. The prohibitory rules are dealt with in the Lord's teachings to Srila Rupa Goswami. Alan, are you still there?
Okay. During his householder's life, the Lord did not display many of the miracles which are generally expected from such personalities. But he did once perform a wonderful miracle in the house of
Srinivas
Thakur while Sankirtan was in full swing. He asked the devotees what they wanted to eat, and when he was informed that they wanted to eat mangoes, he asked for a seed of a mango, although this fruit was out of season. When the seed was brought to him, he sowed it in the yard of what's that word again?
Srinivas.
And at once a creeper began to grow out of the seed. Within no time, this creeper became a full-grown mango tree, heavy with more ripened fruits than the devotee could eat. The tree remained in Srinivas's yard, and from then the one devotee used to take as many mangoes as from the tree as they.
Okay, go ahead, Zoe.
Sorry, I was muted. The Lord had a very high estimation of the affections of the damsels of Vrajamuni, Vrindavan for Krishna, and an appreciation of their unalloyed service to the Lord. Once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the holy names of the gopis, cowherd girls, instead of the names of the Lord. At this time, some of his students, who were also disciples, came to see him, and when they saw the Lord was chanting the names of the gopis, they were astonished. Out of sheer foolishness, they asked the Lord why he was chanting the names of the gopis and advised him to chant the name of Krishna. The Lord, who was in ecstasy, was thus disturbed by these foolish students. He chastised them chased them away. The students were almost the same age as the Lord, and thus they wrongly thought of the Lord as one of their peers. They held a meeting and resolved that they would attack the Lord if he dared to punish them again in such a manner. This incident provoked some malicious talks about the Lord on the part of the general public.
When the Lord became aware of this, he began to consider the various types of men found in society. He noted that especially the students, professors, fruitive workers, yogis, non-devotees, and different types of atheists were all opposed to the devotional service of the Lord. Quote, "My mission is to deliver all the fallen souls of this age," end quote, he thought. Quote, "But if they commit offenses against me, thinking me to be an ordinary person, they will not benefit. If they are to begin their life of spiritual realization, they must some way or other offer obeisances to me," end quote. Thus, the Lord decided to accept the renounced order of life, sannyas, because people in general were inclined to offer respects to a sannyasi. Go ahead, Alan.
500 years ago, the condition of society was not as degraded as it is today. At that time, people would show respect to a sannyasa, and the sannyasa was rigid in following the rules and regulations of the renounced order of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not very much in favor of the renounced order of life in this age of the age of Kali, but that was only for the reason that very few sannyasas in this age are able to observe the rules. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to accept the order and become the ideal sannyasa too, that the general populace would show him respect. One in the duty bound to show respect to the sannyasa, for a sannyasa is considered to be a master of the varnas and ashrams.
While he was contemplating accepting the sannyas order, it so happened that Keshava Bharti, a sannyasi of the Mayavad school and resident of Katwa in Bengal, visited Navadvip and was invited to dine with the Lord. When Keshava Bharti came to his house, the Lord asked him to reward him the sannyas order of life. This was a matter of formality. The sannyas order is to be accepted from another sannyasi. Although the Lord was independent in all respects, still, to keep up the formalities of the Shastras, he accepted the sannyas order from Keshava Bharti, although Keshava Bharti was not in the Vaishnava Sampradaya or school. Go ahead, Zoe.
After consulting with Keshava Bharati, the Lord left Navadvipa for Katwa to formally accept the sannyasa order of life. He was accompanied by Srila Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhara Acharya, and Mukunda Datta. These three assisted him in the details of the ceremony. The incident of the Lord's accepting the sannyasa order is very elaborately described in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by Srila Vrindavana Dāsa Thakura.
Alan?
Thus, at the end of his 24th year of the Lord, accepted the sannyasa's order in the order of life in the month of Magha. After accepting this order, he became a full-fledged preacher of the Bhagavad Dharma. Although he was doing the same preaching work in his householder's life, when he experienced some obstacles to his preaching, he sacrificed even the comfort of his home life for the sake of the fallen souls. In his householder's life, his chief assistants were Srila Advaita Prabhu and Srila Srivasa Thakur, but after he accepted the sannyasa's order, his chief assistants became Srila Nityananda Prabhu, who was deputed to preach specifically in Bengal, and the six Goswamis. I can't pronounce their names.
Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami.
Headed by Srila Rupa and Satyananda, who were deputed to go to Vrindavan to excavate the present places of pilgrimage, the present city of Vrindavan, and the importance of Vrajava, who were thus disclosed by the will of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
The Lord, after accepting the sannyas order, at once wanted to start for Vrindavan. For 3 continuous days, he traveled in the Radhadesh, places where the Ganges does not flow. He was in full ecstasy over the idea of going to Vrindavan. However, Srila Nityananda diverted his path and brought him instead to the house of Advaita Prabhu in Santipur. The Lord stayed at Sri Advaita Prabhu's house for a few days, and knowing well that the Lord was leaving his hearth and home for good, Srila Advaita Prabhu sent his men to Navadvip and to bring Mother Sachi to have a last meeting with her son. Some unscrupulous people say that Lord Chaitanya met his wife also after taking sannyas and offered her his wooden slipper for worship, but the authentic sources give no information about such a meeting. His mother met him at the house of Advaita Prabhu, and when she saw her son in sannyas dress, she lamented. By way of compromise, she requested her son to make his headquarters in Puri so that she would easily be able to get information about him. The Lord granted this last desire of his beloved mother. After this incident, the Lord started for Puri, leaving all the residents of Navadvip in an ocean of lamentation over his separation. Go ahead, Zoe.
The Lord visited many important places on the way to Puri. He visited the temple of Gopinatalji, who had stolen condensed milk for his devotee, Srila Madhavendra Puri. Since then, deity Gopinatalji is well known for Krishna Korda Gopinatha. The Lord relished the story with great pleasure. The propensity of stealing is there even in the absolute consciousness, but because this propensity is exhibited by the absolute, it loses its perverted nature and thus becomes worshipable even by Lord Chaitanya on the basis of the absolute consideration that the Lord and his stealing propensity are one and identical. This interesting story of Gopinathaji is vividly explained in the Chaitanya Karitamrita by Krishna Dasa, Kaviraji Goswami.
After visiting the temple of
Shora Gopinath
of Ramuna at Balsawar and Orissa, the Lord proceeded towards Puri, and on the way visited the temple of
Shakshigopal,
who appeared as a witness in the matter of the two Brahma's devotees' family quarrel. The Lord heard the story of Saksi Gabola with great pleasure because he wanted to impress upon the atheists that the worshipable deities in the temples approved by the great acharyas are not idols, as alleged by men with a poor fund of knowledge. The deity in the temple is the Archar incarnation of the personality of Godhead, and thus the deity is identical with the Lord in all respects. He responds to the proportion of the devotee's affliction for him. In the story of the Shaksa Gopala, in which there was a family misunderstanding by two devotees of the Lord, in order to mitigate the turmoil as well as to show specific favor to his servitors, traveled from Vrindavan to how do you pronounce that place?
Vidyanagar,
a village in Orissa, in the forms of his Acharya incarnation. From there, the deity was brought to Cuttack, and thus the temple of Saksi Gopala is even today visited by thousands of pilgrims on the way to Jagannath Puri. The Lord stayed overnight there and began to proceed toward Puri. On the way, his sannyasa rod was broken by Nityananda Prabhu. The Lord became apparently angry with him about this and went along to Puri, leaving his companions behind.
At Puri, when he entered the temple of Jagannath, he became at once saturated with transcendental ecstasy and fell down on the floor of the temple unconscious. The custodians of the temple could not understand the transcendental feats of the Lord, but there was a great learned Pandit named Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya who was present, and he could understand that the Lord's losing his consciousness upon entering the Jagannath temple was not an ordinary thing. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the chief appointed Pandit in the court of the king of Orissa, Maharaj Prataparudra, was attracted by the youthful luster of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and could understand that such a transcendental trance was only rarely exhibited, and only then by the topmost devotees who were already on the transcendental plane in complete forgetfulness of material existence. Only a liberated soul could show such a transcendental feat, and the Bhattacharya, who was vastly learned, could understand this in the light of the transcendental literature with which he was familiar. He therefore asked the custodians of the temple not to disturb the unknown sannyasi, He asked them to take the Lord to his home so he could further observe his unconscious state. The Lord was at once carried to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who at that time had sufficient power of authority due to his being Shabda Pandit, or the state dean of faculty in Sanskrit languages. The learned Pandit wanted to scrutinizingly test the transcendental feats of Lord Chaitanya because often unscrupulous devotees imitate physical feats in order to flaunt transcendental achievements just to attract innocent people and take advantage of them. A learned scholar like the Bhattacharya can detect such impostors, and when he finds them out, he at once rejects them. Go ahead, Zoe.
In the case of Lord, where am I?
In the meantime.
Oh, sorry. In the meantime, the companions of the Lord who reached the temple a little after him heard of the Lord's transcendental feats and of his being carried away by the Bhattacharya. The pilgrims at the temple were still gossiping about the incident, but by chance one of these pilgrims had met Gopinatha, is that how do you say that?
Acharya. The C is pronounced CH.
Acharya, who was known to Gadadhara Pandita, and from him it was learned that the Lord was lying in an unconscious state at the residence of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who happened to be the brother-in-law of Gopinatha Acharya. All the members of the party were introduced by Gadadhara Pandita to Gopinatha Acharya, who took them to the house of Bhattacharya, where the Lord was lying unconscious in a spiritual trance. All the members then chanted loudly the holy name of the Lord Hari, as usual, and the Lord regained his consciousness. After this, Bhattacharya received all the members of the party, including Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and asked them to become his guests of honor. The party, including the Lord, went for a bath in the sea, and the Bhattacharya arranged for their residence and meals in the house of Kasi Mishra, Gopinatha Acharya, his brother-in-law, who assisted. There were some friendly talks about the Lord's divinity between the two brothers-in-laws, and in this argument, Gopinatha Acharya, who knew the Lord before, now tried to establish the Lord as the personality of Godhead, and the Bhattacharya tried to establish him as one of the great devotees. Both of them argued from the angle of vision of authentic shastras and not on the strength of sentimental vox populi. The incarnations of God are determined by authentic shastras and not by popular votes of foolish fanatics. Because Lord Chaitanya was an incarnation of God, in fact, foolish fanatics have proclaimed so many so-called incarnations of God in this age without referring to authentic scriptures. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya or Gopinatha Acharya did not indulge in such foolish sentimentalism. On the contrary, both of them tried to establish or reject his divinity on the strength of authentic shastras. This is getting very confusing.
Go ahead, Alan.
Later, it was the Bacharyas. It was later it was disclosed that the Bacharyas also came from Navadvip area, and it was understood from him that
Nilambar Chakravarti,
the maternal grandfather of Lord Chaitanya, happened to be a class fellow of the father of
Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
Yeah, in that sense, the young sannyasa Lord Chaitanya evoked paternal affection from Bacharya. Bacharya was the professor of many sannyasas in the order of the Sankarya Arya
Shankaracharya Sampradaya.
And he himself also belonged to that cult. As such, the Bhattacharya desired that the young sannyasa Lord Chaitanya also hear from him about the teachings of Vedanta.
Those who are followers of the Shankara cult are generally known as Vedantists. This does not, however, mean that Vedanta is a monopoly study of the Shankara Sampradaya. Vedanta is studied by all bona fide Sampradayas, but they have their own interpretations. But those in the Shankara Sampradaya are generally known to be ignorant of the knowledge of the Vedanta Vaishnavas. For this reason, the Bhakti Vedanta title was first offered to the author by the Vaishnavas.
The Lord posed himself before the Bhattacharya.
No, this is the second one.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Lord agreed to take lessons from Bhattacharya on the Vedanta, and they sat together in the temple of the Lord Jagannatha. The Bhattacharya went on speaking continually for 7 days, and the Lord heard him with all attention and did not interrupt. The Lord's silence raised some doubts in Bhattacharya's heart, and he asked the Lord how it was that he did not ask anything or comment on his explanations of Vedanta.
I was in that room where the Bhattacharya taught Lord Chaitanya for 7 days, and the book that he was reading from, the Vedanta book, was sitting there wrapped in cloth. And in that room, after Lord Chaitanya completely defeated the Bhattacharya and revealed his true form as a six-handed form of Vishnu, a six-handed form of Krishna. In other words, Krishna as Lord Chaitanya with a water pot and the kamandala pot and danda staff of a sannyasi, and Lord Krishna with a flute and Ramchandra with a bow and arrow. Those 6 arms. And there's a painting on the other wall, on the other side of the room, of Lord Chaitanya in his 6-armed form. That's called Sadbhuj. The Lord posed himself before the Bhattacharya as a foolish student and pretended that he heard the Vedanta from him, because the Bhattacharya felt that this was the duty of a sannyasi. But the Lord did not agree with his lectures. By this, the Lord indicated that the so-called Vedantists among the Sankara Sampradaya or any other Sampradaya who do not follow the instructions of Srila Vyasadeva are mechanical students of Vedanta. They are not fully aware of that great knowledge. The explanation of the Vedanta Sutra is given by the author himself in the text of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. One who has no knowledge of the Bhagavatam will hardly be able to know what the Vedanta says. Go ahead, Al.
The Bhattacharya, being a vastly learned man, could follow the Lord's sarcastic remarks on the popular Vedantist. He therefore asked him why he did not ask about any point which he could not follow. The Bhattacharya could understand the purpose of his dead silence for the days he heard him. This showed clearly that the Lord had something else in mind. Thus the Bhattacharya requested him to disclose his mind.
Go ahead, sir. So.
Upon this, the Lord spoke as follows: My dear sir, I can understand the meaning of the sutras like Janmadi Asya Yata, Shastra, Yonitvat, and Athatu Brahma Jigyasa of the Vedanta Sutra. But when you explain them in your own way, it becomes difficult for me to follow them. The purpose of the sutras is already explained in them, but your explanations are covering them in something else. You do not purposely take the direct meaning of the sutras, but indirectly give your own interpretations.
Okay. The Lord thus attacked all Vedantists who interpret Vedanta Sutra fashionably according to their limited power of thinking to serve their own purpose. Such indirect interpretations of the authentic literatures like the Vedanta Sutra are hereby condemned by the Lord. Go ahead, Al.
The Lord continued. Srila Vasudeva has summarized the direct meanings of the mantras in the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra. Unfortunately, you do not take their direct meaning. You indirectly interpret them in a different way.
I'm going to have to quit here because we only got a minute left. Are there any questions about this section.
I guess I'm just kind of lost with all the names. I'm kind of
Yeah.
I
Well, this
It's going
is
to take
just
some time
the
to
pastime.
absorb.
It's pastime where Lord Chaitanya entered the Jagannath temple and fell down unconscious, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was he was a pundit there, but he was a follower of the Mayavad school, and so when he submitted his 7-day lecture to Lord Chaitanya just sat there and just listened, because that's the duty of a sannyasi. But he didn't say anything. So in that way, Lord Chaitanya he's about to, in the next verses, he'll explain the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra.